I'm doing the, what do we call it? Deafening silence again.
Yeah, I can tell. It's really weird. They've got a real atmosphere to them, those silences.
Yes. They're pregnant pauses. Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners can too. I can actually feel them down.
You can feel the judgment in them, can you?
I can, yeah. Welcome to Own It, Your Business and Your Life, with Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. In this podcast, we're going to cover everything you need to embrace to become a successful entrepreneur, marketing, money, and much, much more. How to create a business doing just what you love. How to own it, your business and your life. This one will be fast, funny, feisty, and very lively. So sit back and enjoy the show. Morning, how are you?
I'm back in the hood. How are you?
Is that psychologically, emotionally and mentally, or what?
Yeah, kinda. I mean, the hood is not the same because of the virus, but in every other respects, I mean,
Oh, you're back in London, you mean?
Yes.
Ah, right. I thought you were just generally back, metaphysically speaking.
No, London isn't normal, obviously. We don't do social distancing here, except when we go into supermarkets, which is very strange.
What do you mean they don't do social distancing?
Well, they're all over everything. The day I arrived, which was a week ago Saturday, it was a hot day, so they were all out on the riverbank and all out in the parks, partying and everything. Then when they get to Marks and Spencer's, they suddenly space themselves out by 2 metres. Honestly, the rest of the time they're in bunches. And I was a bit exhausted and I had to take the car around to the car park that I'd booked because there's no convenient or affordable on-street parking here. And I was so knackered that I had to sit down on a bench on Balham High Road on the way back. Londoners went by and smiled at me. Well, Londoners don't do smiling.
No, they don't even do eye contact, do they?
No, generally not. No.
So that's a strange situation. Why don't you carry on with your week you started?
Okay, all right. So since I spoke to you last, it's more than a week. It's about 3 or 4. It's about 10 days at least, 11. I've done 2 house moves. I think I was in Oxford when I spoke to you last, and now I'm in my niece's flat in Clapham South.
Nice.
The things I like about it, I think I mentioned to you before that it's about 500 yards from the 2 businesses I started. And
that's so
Karen, the woman that took over the travel agency in 1997, coming for coffee on Wednesday this week. Claire's flat is a garden flat with its own front door, and I'm in charge of watering the garden. And of course, last week in the Scorchio, that was essential. We've discussed this before, she's got a memory foam mattress, where it's quite hard to move.
Yes.
But my knees are loving it, and there have been other spontaneous healings. Spontaneous healings continue. I'm lavishing a care and attention on my new iPad. It's got a new case coming today, and so far I don't rule out more retail therapy on it. And you and I rescheduling the podcast from last week was not the only thing I rescheduled, because last week was 30 and 31 degrees in London, no aircon. And so I've got a packed week this week with all of last week rammed into it in this more normal British summer weather.
Yes, normal British summer weather. I mean, it's just, I don't know what's...
We're back down to 19 today.
I know, it's very strange. I've had duvets off, duvets on.
Oh, tell me about it. Last night, 2 duvets. Last week, thought of taking the very thin duvet out of the cover and just sleeping under the cover.
I know. Well, I did. I had to for 2 nights. It was just unbearable.
It was boiling, wasn't it?
Well, it was like Greece, except it was hotter than Greece at night, because in Greece you go downstairs to your bedroom and it's always several degrees cooler down there, and then you've got the fans going and you sleep with the doors open, the windows open and the shutters shut. I
don't know if you can remember last summer I was in Cobham when we had the equivalent, and there were these furry chairs in the office that I just couldn't bring myself to sit on. Same thing here. When I'm melting, I'm not going to do good work with my clients. I've had to reschedule 2 of those into this week.
Wow. Gosh, so it has been a packed and busy time for you.
Yeah, it has been a packed and busy time, actually, and more about that in our focus.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Well, I've been trundling on as normal. I went to Kim's last Tuesday evening for supper, as she calls it. We're both working class girls, but she has aspirations to be posh and always.
Well, I call it supper. I'm sure you won't be surprised to hear that, Nicola.
No, not at all. And she's bought a beautiful little cottage on Stenning High Street. It looks tiny from the outside, but goes back and up. and it's all been beautifully renovated inside. She's had a oak frame kitchen built on the back, and she got this sort of beautiful little courtyard garden which was very overgrown and lush, and they've trimmed it all back and made it Italianti with water features and statues of Zeus standing around, so it's very tasteful indeed. And lots of little lots, 3 or 4 areas where you can go and sit. It's really beautiful. So we had a lovely hot evening out there, her partner joining us at the end, and it was interesting because, literally, I mean, we've been friends since we were 15, and we do have very different views, which is amazing. Literally, about within 10 minutes of the first gin and tonic being placed on a table, we were at a conversation point that could have gone either way,
Yeah.
But we both pulled it back, and she pulled it back. I was just sitting there thinking, oh, God, it's going to be one of those evenings. And she pulled it back graciously, so that was good. And then on poker on Wednesday night, that's a recurring theme now. We both really enjoy it, me and Pete. And we sit and play. It's very strange. We sit and play often different games, because if one of us gets knocked out, we all start on the same tournament. But if one of us gets knocked out, they go off and play a different game. But we've still got Zoom on. So I tend to put my poker table over my face, so I can just see Pete, and I think he does the same. So what we're looking for is tells. So if we're talking about, we're on different game, and I've got we tell each other our cards, and he'll if we get into a showdown situation, he's watching me for tells, and I'm watching him for tells, so that when we go back to play in the pub, we'll be able to see each other's tells, which is quite amusing. So being friends in the poker game doesn't involve not taking someone else's money or chips. It's not money. We play for like $1 games and things. So, but it's quite good fun. And we tend to have a couple of glasses of wine. And this is quite funny. I bought all my toppings for my pizza that I hadn't eaten the week before. Halfway through in the break, I popped out to put my pizza in, only to find the pizza had mysteriously disappeared from the freezer. So I had a lot of toppings but nothing to put.
Oh, you could have made a pizza sandwich or something.
Well, and then I did text the children. I said, because they were down the beach still, I said,
yes, who's eaten my pizza?
Who's had my pizza? Yeah.
Yep.
And they said, Mummy, you daft old thing, you must have eaten it another night because we haven't had it. So I thought, I'm not convinced about that. Nelson said, if you examine the evidence, you'll find that I'm a vegetarian and that was a salami pizza.
Oh, good point, Nelson.
Yeah, so thereby throwing suspicion in a different
Yes.
Madam has been coming in quite late she goes down the beach, they all get a bonfire going and have a lovely evening down there, and then does tend to come home hungry. But I'll let her off anyway. And then on Wednesday, I went for coffee in the graveyard with my sister. She's taken to just ringing me up randomly because she lives in Shoreham now and saying, I'm going for a coffee. Would you like one? And then I meet her in the graveyard and we sit on one of many benches. Sorry,
has somebody brought a thermos flask, or does the graveyard serve coffee?
No, there is a rather nice patisserie just next to it.
All right.
And it's sort of the main parky area trees, lots of fabulous old oak trees and the beautiful church.
I don't mind a graveyard as it happens.
No, I like them. I think it puts things in perspective quite.
Well, it's quite restful, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And beautiful church, beautiful massive oak trees to give you shade. It's lovely. But literally within I don't know, half an hour of that, we had a little contretemps, which we're going to talk about, I think, in Focus of the Week.
Indeed.
And so I just came home from that feeling a bit, I can't be bothered now. I'm not going out again. And but yeah, apart from that, it was a very, very enjoyable week.
I would just comment, going back to Kim's house, I love a courtyard garden, me.
Oh, yes. And
I don't think I'd want a statue of Zeus, tasteful or otherwise, but I think the courtyard is a wonderful thing, even if you've only got 3 sides.
Yeah, there's lots of ladies standing around with things draped around.
No, never. Okay.
Oh, it's stunning.
Never.
I think even tinier gardens can benefit from a water feature. It just makes it feel so lovely. It makes it feel cooler in the hot weather, definitely.
I'm doing what do we call it? Deafening silence again.
Yeah, I can tell. It's really weird. They've got a real atmosphere to them, those silences.
Yes. They're pregnant pauses. Yeah.
I'm sure our listeners can too. I can actually feel them down.
You can feel the judgment in them, can you?
I can, yeah. I don't feel it as judgment, luckily.
No, good. That's good. There's a word for that. It's palpable, isn't it?
Yes, that is exactly what happened. Your silences are palpable. Yes.
And by the way, I loved your use of the word contretemps.
When did I say that?
You said after the coffee in the graveyard with your sister, you had a little contretemps, which we're going to talk about this week. We are indeed.
Yes, and I'm sure if we looked it up, it would be exactly the right word.
No, it is exactly the right word. Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm impressed by your use of the word contretemps.
Yes. What's fueled your fire this week then?
Well, you're going to like this, I think. You mentioned to me last time, or it may have been the time before, I've got a bit confused by all this discombobulating, moving and rescheduling, a biologist. And you said you didn't know his name, but you said you thought he was a social biologist. Well, bizarrely, somebody sent me, Joanna, if you're listening, she sent me a link, which I'm going to link to in the show notes because I think some listeners might want to listen to it. It's an annoying, beardy presenter full of himself and very dull, and I'm very well aware, as I say that many people might think the same about me. He's called Rebel Wisdom, and the video, which went out on the 17th of June, is called What the is Going On. I'm not going to say that rude word beginning with F, but as you know, it's one of my favourites. And the topic is the question of who to trust, how we find truth, and how we're being manipulated is central to understanding and solving all of our problems. And as you know, this was our topic from the 8th of May. So we were 5 or 6 weeks ahead of him in this thinking, the beardy academic. And his has enjoyed typically on YouTube 250,000 views. So this is clearly a topic which is on people's minds. But in the course of it, he reveals that 2 years ago, and you'll know this from that program you were telling us about, Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and this biologist and his brother formed something called the intellectual dark web, which was discussing exactly what we were, the inadequacies of the mainstream media and the lack of truth 2 years before we got to it.
Which may have actually got my personal URL completely banned from Facebook.
Oh.
Because it might well have been the final straw in the Facebook algorithms.
Well, it's interesting because actually it's not very controversial, this.
Well, I can't think of anything else that would have tipped Facebook over.
You mean you think ours? Or you're linking to this intellectual dark web thing?
They're perfect. The fact that...
Because all they are is just brainy thinkers.
No. When we shared that Who Can You Trust episode,
yeah, it
went on to my website and the Own It, the podcast website, and Facebook.
So you're not talking about what I'm talking about. You're talking about... Yeah. Our one, you think, was the thing that tipped your URL over. Yes. So anyway, I'm sort of, but it's okay. Cause on the scale of controversy, it's relatively.
Oh, I know it is. Yeah. So, are you going to say his name or not yet?
I don't know his name. His channel's called Rebel Wisdom, and I'm going to link to it. Okay. You mean the biologist, or no? The biologist is interviewed in it, and he's very interesting, and his brother's interviewed in it as well, and he's.
Go on.
I'll finish it because the beardy presenter is so dull. But the point is, I discovered your biologist.
Well, good news, because Joe Rogan has actually got a new episode which I listened to last night with just the biologist.
Is he a little dark-haired man with quite nice hair?
And he speaks beautifully.
American?
Yeah, hang on. Let's find his name because it's going to annoy us.
Well, the biologist isn't particularly the point of this story. It's just that coincidentally, it's like, oh my God, that's Nicola's biologist. That's all I was saying, really.
Enough. I was listening to something with Joe Rogan last night, and just him for the whole episode.
Yeah.
And he was saying that he had this bloke back, Bret Weinstein.
That's it. And his brother's called something else, Weinstein, obviously, not Harvey. And they're both a couple of thought leaders and intellectuals. I think the other one might even be a journalist for a proper newspaper.
Yeah, there's a biology. He's a biology professor at Evergreen State College in Olympia, WA, whatever that means. And he's had apparently Evergreen State College is kicking off big time with lots of student protests and worse, lots of subversive infiltration.
Yeah.
And this whole episode 1494 on Joe Rogan, just talking to him, and apparently this Bret Weinstein predicted all of this stuff that's happening about 2 or 3 years ago.
Well, that's what I'm saying here. I've written it in capital letters 2 years ago, this intellectual dark web. And it was Joe, Jordan, Bret Weinstein, Weinstein's brother, and a few other sort of thinking people who basically identified 2 years ago that they could not trust the media.
Yes, and it's called Bret Weinstein's Dark Horse Podcast, if you're interested.
Okay, that's his own podcast, or is that the one of Joe's 1494?
Yeah, I think it might be that one. So
I'm just going to put Joe Rogan 1494.
I'll investigate further.
Anyway, Bret Weinstein, he's the man, absolutely right. I thought he was quite an interesting little chap. Not enough of him and too much of the annoying beardy presenter, frankly, on this film. But I'll link to it because it leads in other directions. Now, tell me what's fueled your fire.
Well, I've launched the promotion aspect of my 5-day challenge, which starts next Monday. It's now called the Clicks and Leads 5-day challenge, and I'm following the organic promotion. Well, I'm not really following it very well, to be honest, because they want you to post on all of your social media platforms 6 times a day, which I'm finding incredibly impossible to do, mainly because I don't know why, it's just really hard. It's not that I feel reluctant to do it, because I know that not everyone sees everything. It's just I think it's because I didn't sit down and prepare 7 lots of 6 bits of stuff. Do you know what I mean? I think if you sat and for next time.
So if not everybody sees everything, do they all need to be unique?
No, what you can promote one thing at say 7 o'clock in the morning across all your social media platforms, the same thing at 10 o'clock.
Yes.
No, not the same thing as the 7 o'clock thing. You're supposed to have different things 6 times a day, and they give you an outline of what kind of posts they should be.
Yes.
So it's really, really incredibly well planned. And as usual, I've fallen foul of that because I'm not a planner. So if I'd sat down and thought I'm going to need 14 bits of content. No, more than that, isn't it? 14 times 6 bits of content. I mean, that just makes me feel completely overwhelmed.
Well, interesting. I did have a system once where I did post that many times a day on my page, and there was different types of content. So an audio, a blog post. I can't remember what they were now. And I remember you saying at the time, oh my God, that's a lot of work. But actually, if you systemize it, which is a concept I loathe, generally speaking, it's not that difficult.
And if I'd have systemized it according to how I teach my students.
Well, I did think that. I thought actually when you were saying it, I thought, oh my God, it's got BEO overtones.
Well, yes, exactly. But I haven't planned it all in advance. So I'm finding it nearly impossible. Well, it's totally impossible to keep up.
Well, as my grandpa used to say, Nicola, don't do as I do as I do telly.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So I'm feeling encouraged because I do have a decent number of people registered, but I need a lot more than that. So I've been investigating Facebook.
Well, you've got another week, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got another week, yes, but I can't see that anything's going to change this week to last week. But perhaps I'll pull my...
Well, except all those people that pile in and sign up at the end.
That's very true. Lots of people do sign up at the last.
And also, you're fully justified in having a sort of marketing frenzy at the end, because that's what everybody does to accommodate those people who can only make a decision under that sort of pressure.
Yes, exactly. And, the date always obviously helps. So that's what's fueled my fire anyway.
Okay. So shall we move on to Focus of the Week then? Yes, I think it's going to be quite a long one. I got a very long preamble, which I'll read to you, and then I'll shut up and let you pile in, okay? And I'll tell you when I've finished, because it's quite long. Excuse me. So, lockdown emotions. A very interesting and affirming conversation, which I started on Facebook once I got here. The reason I sat down on that bench on Balham High Road was I found the 2 moves so exhausting I could hardly move. And it appears it's not a thing that I've invented, but share with many, many women who joined in the conversation. It drew 35 engagements and 70 comments from more than 30 fine women, only 2 of whom did not share the same sentiment, which was full of strange emotions about reduction in confidence, anxiety about leaving the house. They were vulnerable. I was vulnerable. I led them in vulnerability. It was honest and it was very affecting. And I started with my exhaustion. They followed up with their feelings of, and I've listed them, so it's a long list because it's very, very varied, overwhelm and sadness and oddness. And I wanted to explain that when I was staying with Leslie last week, my oldest school friend, in the middle of the country where they'd seen nobody, she'd fielded a phone call from a neighbour asking them to come over for a drink. And she and her husband, who's an Oxford zoologist, were too scared to do that. But after my visit, they felt emboldened by my strange impromptu 4-night stay where we had coffee one time and tea another and conversation. So, simply the arrival of a stranger into their lives, which at first was frightening because Leslie shouted at me when I arrived from about 20 meters. And then that was Tuesday. And then Thursday, I invited myself over for tea. And then Saturday, she invited me over for coffee. It was like that broke their kind of social isolation, which they'd sunk into. She was frightened, actually. She was shocked and nervous and frightened, all of those emotions. These two are really brilliant, brainy, high-achieving people. Anyway, as were all these commenters who went on to talk about struggle, anxiety, feeling irritable, discombobulating, not wanting to go back to the way things were before, thinking twice before going out, reasons to go out, having to pass the safety test and the essentialness test, extreme fatigue, brain treacle, irrational fear, unending monotony, limited social interaction, crushing weariness, quiet rage, managing our desire to rebel, nervous, apprehensive, how to best behave to care for loved ones when visiting family, tearful, scared, being on my own is tiring and exhausting. I just wanted to make clear that one isn't me. I felt like I wanted to cry all morning, a huge build-up of sadness, tired, listless, weary. I hate it all right now. Again, that one wasn't me. Meltdown, sleeplessness, upset, a refusal to play anymore from Cherie, which you questioned what she meant. And Rihanna, a more placid soul I've never met in my life, but she's clearly very angry now. She said, and Cherie said, I want none of it. Somebody else said, I feel out of whack, literally feeling crushed by the weight of the world. Wanting to shy away from crowds. I'm all over the place emotionally, lethargic, slightly anxious, not sure why, draining, constant mind chatter, feeling institutionalized but can't be asked to socialize with anyone. By the way, I know that many, many, many more people do not feel this. So it's only part of the story, probably about half, because typically these days, everything we talk about, we're all split 50-50 down the middle. Now, I've had loads of rest this week at my niece's flat and I'm feeling a lot better. Plus I've been responsible for watering the garden, which is always very grounding, being in nature and watching things grow. And I was interested to note in yesterday's weekly horoscopes from Lorna Bevan of Hare and the Moon, one of my two faves. She says that next Sunday, July the 5th, is the lunar eclipse, the very last in 9 eclipses across since 2018. One by one, they've brought home to every single one of us the lived truth of the fragility and impermanence of life. As Saturn, Jupiter, and Pluto transits through Capricorn, blah, 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 at the same time have broken apart social frameworks, governments, and the economy. This is a time to be very gentle with yourself. The world will feel harsh and emotions raw. The Capricorn moon can be hard on those of us who are sensitives. So my last thought here is, maybe only those of us who would class ourselves as sensitives wanted to join in on a conversation online about the feelings that unify us.
Yeah. Whereas the other half are just...
That's the end.
Yeah. Whereas perhaps...
But they're not feeling it for different reasons. They're not feeling it for different reasons. Maybe they're in a different setup. Maybe they have to be out and about in their job. Maybe where they're living and the circumstances under which they're living, not everybody. I'm the only person that's had to move twice in the last fortnight, aren't I? Not everybody's feeling that. In fact, in our last show, I said to you, I felt a little bit anxious before I went to the petrol station, a teeny tiny bit of agoraphobia. Do you remember?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
It was you that said, let's talk about this.
Yes, because I had a very, I can relate to some of those feelings, by the way. It's the feeling of not wanting to play anymore. I think it's because that's come from sheer overwhelm of thinking about it a lot and trying to understand what's going on and trying to become educated about what's happening with the media and all that stuff. And I just got to this point last week where I just thought, I'm just not going to play. I'm not going to play anymore. I'm just going to get on with my life. And it's summed up really. I mean, I was looking at Facebook last week and I thought, right in this post of someone really intelligent who I know who has had COVID and has been very, very ill with it, not to the point of being hospitalised, but they've now told her that it exacerbated one of her other things, which I didn't really understand what it was, but she's had extreme fatigue, barely able to move from the bed to the balcony to get some sun and stuff like that. And then on another day, she's been fine to cycle into the village with a mask on, but she's a very big advocate of wearing masks. She lives in America, by the way. And then literally the next post on the same feed was from a very intelligent British woman who I know, like, and respect, talking about what absolute nonsense wearing masks is and giving lots of medical proof as to why we shouldn't. And I just thought, oh, this is just ridiculous. There's one woman there who's had COVID who thinks we should all be wearing masks, and anyone who doesn't is rude at the very least and worse at the very best. And then right underneath it is someone saying, this mask business is a distraction and a nonsense and something that's being put about just to give us some sort of feeling of sovereignty over our danger levels and things like that. And I just thought this was ridiculous. So anyway, then I went for a coffee with my sister, and literally, I've been trying to just talk to her about, because her and Richard have been restructuring, they've been removing, they've been restructuring, they both got business loans, they've paid off debt, they've got a lot, they've got cash basically. And I'm worried they've got too much cash in their bank. And ditto Richard's son, who's a YouTuber of some renown now, and he's got a lot of cash sitting in one bank account, which is making me very nervous, but doesn't seem to be worrying anyone else. And then I thought, I'll just talk to Heather about, what my friends are doing who have amounts of cash from various sources and who are trying to mitigate the danger of having it all in one place. And I thought that was a fairly unemotional, pragmatic, kind of down-to-earth practical thing that her and Richard might want to talk about. And after about 10 minutes of just me explaining, she said, I really don't want to talk about this. In fact, it's making me not want to see you. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, Sarah and I were saying the other day that all you ever talk about is stuff to do with the pandemic, and we don't, it's something we don't really want to know about. And I thought, all the times that I've felt irritated and annoyed by you two, and I've never once crossed my mind that I didn't want to see you. And I thought, I just wanted to walk away and wash my hands of both of them. I really did. And I was quite, not massively upset. I was just exasperated, I think is the word, the level of annoyance I was feeling. And I just thought, this is probably just all to do with COVID. I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to just let it go and let's see how I feel after. And after, a few days now, I'm feeling more compassion because I know that they're just in overwhelm and just can't cope because they just feel so out of control of what's going on that they're just dealing with it emotionally, how we're all trying to deal with it emotionally. And so I came to a place of, forgiveness and compassion spontaneously, which isn't like me.
Well done for that.
Well, it just happened after a while, really, I suppose. I just came to a bit of an understanding about what they were thinking. And I just thought we all deal with it in different ways. My way, is to get very practical. And if you recall at the beginning of this pandemic, I was running around trying to get all my ducks in a row with things like insurances and stuff like that, because I was facing prospects that were so terrible that all I could think of was how to get it dealt with practically. But my practicality is too practical, even for some people who are quite practical, apparently. So there you go. That's my input on this.
I would say, in the example of Heather and Richard, that Richard is an accountant, and he will know that £85,000 is insured in every bank account.
Yeah, but what about the rest of it?
Well, he's got to put it in another bank account. The fact is, he knows. We don't have to, at this advanced stage of our lives, of are you 59 and I'm 65, tell other people how to run their lives.
No, I know.
And actually, there's a lot of people trying to do what we all tried to do at Brexit as well, which is to persuade each other of the wrongness of their thinking and the rightness of ours.
Oh, no,
it's the same with the masks. It's the same with COVID. One of my, I've given it up because it was too painful. You can't persuade people who've chosen their beliefs for whatever reason and they're sticking by them that your different ones are right.
I wasn't trying to.
No, I know that. I'm just saying generally, Richard is an accountant. Leave them to sort out their money.
Yes, but,
What are we going to talk about? What are you going to talk about with your sisters?
That's exactly the problem, isn't it? I mean, I'm sitting there thinking this week, I have got nothing in common with either of them at all at the moment.
Well, I don't at the moment. I don't think that's true generally. I do think actually whilst families are more complex, what you're discussing is exactly a symptom of this focus, this topic, which is it's all very, you nearly came to that point with Kim as well. Our nearest and dearest are the hardest people to discuss these things with, in a way.
Well, I haven't got anyone else. I've got family and close friends.
Well, and then that means it's going to be difficult for you for a while.
Yeah.
But I think all of us think it's difficult for a while.
Yeah, it's true.
For different reasons.
And the weirdest thing is, one keeps forgetting about the pandemic. If one is not in a situation where one is reminded of it, i.e., I stay in the house, I go to the co-op, I go and sit in the graveyard occasionally, and literally, Kim's is the first place I've been to since February, and it's very easy to forget there's a pandemic out there at all, and then you almost stop believing in it. You think, and then you find out there's been, COVID thingies in the Barcelona sewage since March last year. And you think, what is going on? It's, and then you get this disbelief. I mean, there's more proof of aliens in the skies every week than there is of people dying of COVID in my life. You know what I mean? It's like I'm getting to the point where I don't believe in it, but I do believe in it because my practical normal side says it's still out there and it's still hurting people. And then, but my life, it feels like a great big fraud.
Well,
I don't know what.
My guilty little secret that I have said out loud to one or two people, and I'm not sure I've said it on the podcast, and you can feel free to cut it out if you want to when you're editing, is if you don't believe in it, can you catch it?
Oh, okay.
I've never believed in it.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I don't believe I get cold, so I don't get cold.
Well, I mean, COVID does mean cold.
Yeah.
If you take a test for COVID, all the colds you've ever had and all the flus you've ever had will all add up to you've got a COVID in your body.
Yeah, that's true.
But anyway, let's not get into the details of that. I think the fact is that that what we are bonded by as thinking, feeling human beings is this has knocked us all more than we might have imagined.
Yeah.
And in secret underground ways, if it's not obvious on the surface.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the reason why I was sharing it was because I was amazed. Because, I'm quite a strong, crack on with it human being. And I'd literally run out. I could not walk back from the car park at Clapham South Tube Station to Claire's flat, which is in the first road after the tube station, without a long sit down because my tank was empty.
I totally understand. I had exactly the same experience in January and February. I felt exhausted all the time.
I was amazed. And I got to Leslie's and honestly couldn't speak to her to go in for a wee and a lie down. I remember reporting that last week. And it's like, I like to explore my thoughts and feelings with my mouth open, and really my mouth open or my fingers typing on Facebook. It was very, very reassuring when everybody came forward and shared their own version of that and were grateful that I'd opened up the discussion.
Yeah, I was amazed at the response. And
actually the calibre of the participants in that, they are all strong, confident, competent businesswomen.
Yeah, yeah.
Who under normal circumstances would be going about their lives just as we hope one day to return to.
Yeah. Goes to show, doesn't it? You hold all your emotion in your body and then it has this physical manifestation.
Crisis. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes.
I remember walking back from the co-op in I think it must have been February because the weather was bad. And I remember thinking, I literally don't have the strength to put one leg in front of the other.
Well, no, that's where I was at.
And then the thought of climbing 2 flights of stairs with.
I know, I get you, Nicola. I get you totally. Yeah. And I think what's really interesting is when I looked at this long list, some of these emotions are absolutely exhausting to carry. Rage, rebellion, crushed by the weight of the world. These are hard, heavy ones to carry. A couple of 35-year-olds, a husband and wife, came in and said they had a meltdown. I thought, well, hang on, if you're having a meltdown as a couple of 35-year-olds with emotional support from your other half, and I'm managing as an old age pensioner on my own, I feel better about that then.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And this week, I walked to the car yesterday. I thought, I feel really energetic today.
Well, it's different. Yeah, exactly. I'm hoping I've got to go and fetch the car later. I'm hoping I will feel like a new woman this afternoon.
Well, let's hope so. Eh?
Yes, quite. Yeah.
There we go. So,
So emotions are heavy.
I wonder what the biologist has to say about it. Bret, are you?
Has Bret weighed in on this? I think I think we will our minds will change as everything is revealed in due course.
Yeah, well, that'll be good. I'm looking forward to that day, I must say.
There's a lot of talk about going back to normal. I don't want to go back to normal. I don't think our old normal was any better, quite frankly. I hope we're going to create a new world.
Yes, and I also think that people who say going back to normal are deluding themselves. There ain't nothing normal going on. Okay, so what's your word of the week then?
Intuition, because I found this nice meme. Now pay attention, because this is quite mind-boggling. This nice meme said, when you don't know how you know, but you know, and you knew, that's all you need to know.
That's true.
And that's intuition.
And that would have saved me from buying an awful lot of books like How to Make Good Decisions.
Well, before you trusted yourself.
How to Love a Difficult Man.
Before you trusted yourself.
Yes.
Well, that's what my book was about, trusting yourself.
How to become a woman of substance.
Yeah. What's your word?
Polarity. Because
that's exactly the point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But what prompted that word is that everyone seems to be driven, presumably by the media, sent in one direction or another, where there's no middle ground at all.
I think, I had that very thought when I was walking to the kitchen table this morning. I thought, because even in my family, we're polarised on these last two back-to-back big issues, and that means we can't talk about it.
Yeah. So if you want to stay friends and not be able to attend family,
well, you've got to learn to keep your gob shut, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is quite hard for a couple of chatterboxes.
Yeah, it is. Controversial birds, as Glenn on Life Full of Meaning calls us. Right. Project updates then.
Where am I up to with my Jordan B. Peterson self-authoring project? Kitchen table tick, comfy chair, non merci. So I've resigned to finishing this off at July and August, where I'm going for a nice long house sit in East Sheen. Where will I be there? No, I won't. I'll still be here this week, and I'll be there next week, I think.
Where's East Sheen?
It's near Richmond in Surrey.
Oh, okay.
No, they're sort of London. They're both London boroughs, but they're over on the west side towards Heathrow and Surrey. Oh,
okay. East Sheen sounds quite genteel.
Richmond, it's nice, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say. Okay, I have done a tiny bit of work on my novel. I have put 22,000 words in order because I had
in order to form sentences.
I've jiggled around the order of the chapters a little bit, and I had the revelation in the shower the other week about my opening chapter not being long enough to let the listener get empathy with the protagonist. I've also then started analysing scene by scene according to story grid principles. A scene's about 1,000 to 1,500 words. And so I didn't know that when I first started. So some of my scenes are quite long. So I'm breaking them up now into smaller scenes, and then I'm analysing them according to, is there a inciting incident? Is there a crisis in the middle? Does someone's value shift during the scene from positive to negative or negative to positive, because that's what makes the scene interesting, apparently. Is there any climax?
It's quite a tall order for every scene to have all of these features.
Oh, yes, I know. But the reason I'm doing it is because I want to submit this book to StoryGrid Publishing. And they're very clever. They won't accept any submissions unless you submit a foolscap summary in their style, which is easy enough, and and you've analysed every scene in your book, and you can submit a spreadsheet accordingly.
Yep, good.
It really knocks out all the people who just think you can write on
fluffies,
the skinnier pants. Exactly.
Yeah. Is this the novel about Brienne?
Yes.
What nationality is Brienne?
British.
Such a strange name.
Well, it's a Celtic name. I'm always drawn to Celtic names. I don't know.
Is it a Celtic name?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. And the other thing I did was I contacted a StoryGrid editor, because after about 3 of these scenes, I thought, oh, Jesus, I can't do this without being forced. And the only way to force myself is to pay for someone to be accountable to. So I thought I'll contact a StoryGrid editor and see. And I was assigned to Randall, and I'm still thinking about whether I want to go ahead. He's offered to do a test analysis of up to 5,000 words, but I'm not convinced I want to. I'm not convinced I want to pay ongoing. It might be worth having a bit of a. I really want someone to analyse the story arc overall, and then read some scenes. But I'm not convinced I want to go ahead with it. I don't know why. I just feel a bit hesitant. So
or not ready, perhaps.
Yeah, I'm going to sit on that for a while and force myself to do some more scene analysis. It's really a way of paying to prevaricate. That's what
I have to say that novel writing, and I've got several clients that do it, is not an easy thing to do. It isn't.
I can't. I mean, the thing is, though, I do like intellectual challenges. So, and it sort of happened organically because I was at the, going to the writing club every week and talking about novels and surrounded by novelists, and it just sort of seemed like a thing I could do. But sometimes I do wonder if I'd rather just not sit and watch a film.
Well, I think novelists find procrastination more accessible than any other genre of human being.
Absolutely. I've never been a procrastinator until I started being a novelist.
No, absolutely. And actually, I think perhaps not much of a procrastinator myself. I think the first time I learned about procrastination was a journalist or a writer, talking about how attractive the washing up becomes when you're sitting at your computer trying to create something.
Or in my case, wiping light switches.
Well, exactly.
Fingerprints.
It's just madness, isn't it? I need to clean the house, or might as well pretend to write my book for a bit then. And suddenly it'll appear very attractive.
Well, that's how it's been all my life. Anything's been more exciting than cleaning the house.
Well, yes, true. Yeah.
But now, not so much. Right, okay, who or what's impressed this week?
Well, I've got two. How many have you got?
One.
Okay, shall I start?
Yeah, you go.
Staged on BBC iPlayer with David Tennant and Michael Sheen. As you know, they were together in Good Omens. Was it called Good Omens?
Yes, it was Good
Omens.
And
they've written it themselves. It's a self-parody about two actors playing themselves in lockdown, ostensibly rehearsing a play via Zoom. It's total genius. And their creative collaboration, which they clearly started in Good Omens, is a joy to behold. And what I liked about it is they've both got lockdown hair, which makes me feel better about mine. And Michael Sheen's really was quite eccentric. Shall I go on to my other one?
Yes, go on then.
In the Monaco show, the third and final episode of the Monaco show, there was this brilliant quote from Princess Caroline, who's Princess Grace's daughter, who is now the member of the royal family in charge of the ballet there. She says, "I always like to think that tradition is the transmission of fire, not the worshipping of ashes."
Nice.
I thought that was the best quote of the week.
Yeah, that is a lovely quote.
Isn't it?
It makes it much more of a living thing, doesn't it?
Well, doesn't it? That's what she's saying. Worship what's gone. Let's take something from that moves us forward.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Very good. Well, I've been watching The Luminaries on. It's all about the gold rush in New Zealand, and it's a period. Phoebe and I like to find things to watch together, and it looked a bit like The Golden Compass because it was a period drama with magic, and actually it managed to get her attention before she realised there wasn't that much magic in it at all. But it's interesting because I've read up about it. It was a Booker prize-winning book, and the dramatisation of it is focused very much on a minor character, whereas the book was focused on another character entirely. He was the protagonist. But I'm finding that it wasn't that good. It's not that good. It's not brilliant. It's pretty good. It's really beautifully filmed, which really keeps you going through the more turgid plot points. Actually, one of the actresses is, again, not the protagonist in the series, but she's Eva Green. And she's French, apparently. And
she was a Bond girl. She was a spectacularly good Bond girl, actually. I like her. Yeah.
Well, that's right. She's got a very, very arresting face. And I keep thinking while watching The Luminaries, why is this woman not the protagonist than the other one? But that's about casting rather than writing, isn't it?
Well, I have to confess that I've read The Luminaries in a book club in about 2013 or whenever it was that this book was out. I found it absolutely deadly. The other two members of turgid, in fact, to use your word, the other two members of my book club were Sally Kirkman, the astrologer, who loves it and is watching the telly because, of course, the magic to which you refer is astrologically based. And Anne Walsh was the other one. I can't remember. Anne's quite academic when it comes to a book. She probably quite enjoyed the challenge, but I found it like wading through treacle, so I haven't watched it on the television. It's
mercifully only 6 episodes, and we are about halfway through the 6th one.
They've got very nice graphics, which are quite tempting. Would probably draw you in.
Yeah, no, they're not as good as some graphics have been, but yes, the graphics are very pleasing. But we got halfway through the 6th episode, having watched all 6 yesterday afternoon, and Phoebe said, "I'm going to bed now," and I'm like, "Oh, what?"
What, you wanted somebody to discuss it with, did you?
No, I didn't want to watch all 6 in one go. I mean, she's she likes to binge watch, but we were binge watching. Then it sucked me in, and then halfway through the final episode, off to bed she went. So I don't know what the ending is yet.
Oh, I see. You hadn't even reached the end.
No.
I'm just Googling on Amazon to see how many pages it was. I remember this being a great big fat, almost impossible book. Hang on a second.
I've got to say, I don't like the sound of the book at all. From the
There we go. You purchased this item on the 4th of November 2013. 853 pages.
Yeah. Well,
Christ, I can still remember the pain of it now.
Yes, well, I won't be reading the book, put it that way, because it was from a male protagonist's point of view, and even making these.
Actually, I do remember the story being quite interesting. Is it about sex workers?
Yes.
Yes.
Sort of, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the women are really very good, and I think that was the way to go for the dramatisation. Definitely put them front and centre. But
you're right. It won the Man Booker Prize in 2013.
Eva Green, fantastic actress. We'll be looking out for her in future.
Yes, she was the one that Bond fell in love with.
Ah, feisty piece. That's us done then.
Yeah. I'll see you on Thursday. Well, whether or not I've got anything to talk about by then, because it's only 3 days away.
You've been listening to Nicola Cairncross and Judith Morgan. Do come and visit us at ownitthepodcast.com. We love to hear your feedback. You can find out more about Judith and visit her on her website at judithmorgan.com, and you can find Nicola at nicolacairncross.com.